10th of April, full front update. Let's get started in Bakhmut. Here we see that the Russian forces have managed to capture the rest of Rose Alley here to the northwest of the city, as fighting continues here to the south of that location as well as to the east of it, as the Russian forces try to expand the zone of control here within the residential zone here to the northwest of the city. We also see fighting further northeast of that location as Russian forces also continue their attacks in that direction. And here to the east of the rail lines, the northern parts are in full control of the Russian forces. As for the central area, we see the fighting continuing by the edge of the marketplace as well as by the main train station. According to some sources, this main train station has come under the control of the Russian forces. However, I'm still waiting for further confirmation. So far I'm keeping it as Ukrainian control. Essentially, the reports say that the casualties on both sides within this train station is the heaviest of any other place in the central area, even more than the Assam steel plant. So this is a very heavy battle being fought over this train station, as it is the last stronghold on the eastern part of the rail lines for the Ukrainian forces. Not to mention how much they have fortified this location over the past few months. Then we see here further south, the Russian forces continue their attacks in these directions, as the Ukrainian forces also attempt counterattacks to try and regain lost positions, and they continue fighting heavily in these areas here to the south, as this is the last foothold the Ukrainian forces have across the rail lines. Further westwards, fighting continues in this direction, and the Ukrainians have actually launched a successful counterattack here in the southwestern part of the Bakhmut area, as they managed to recapture some of these high-rise buildings as well as the post office. With this, the Russian forces are now fighting by the last residential areas, and it may be another back and forth, as according to Remy, what usually happens is that the Ukrainian forces attack during the day and the Russian forces attack during the night. So currently we may see the area change hands a couple of times, but so far it is the western part under Ukrainian control, and this last part in the southeast is under Russian control. Then we move on to the north, where here in the Kreminna front, fighting continues as the Russian forces continue their attempts at attacking the river line here to the west of Kreminna, as they continue attacking in all of these directions. As for the south of Kreminna, fighting continues here in the Serebryansky forest area, as the Russian forces continue attempts at taking control over this forest line, and they have had some success by pushing the Ukrainians back from this intersection. However, there's no clear evidence to suggest that the Russian forces actually hold it, but rather that they just push the Ukrainians away. Fighting continues by Avdiivka and Kamyansk, as well as to the northwest of Bakhmut, where fighting continues by the E40 highway, south of Oryhovo-Vasilivka, southeast of Avdiivka, and northwest of Romove, as the Russian forces continue their attempts at taking control over this road here. As for the south, the Russian forces continue their attacks in the direction of Ivanivsk. Then we move on to the Avdiivka front, where here the Russian forces continue their attacks west of Krasnohorivka, south in the direction of Kamyanka, northwards of Opytny in the direction of Avdiivka, northwards of Vodiane in the direction of Severne, west of Pervomaiske, in the northern parts of Pervomaiske as well as the central parts of Pervomaiske, and south in the direction of Nevelske. Here the Russian forces actually managed to capture this last part of the forest lines to the south of Novobakhmutivka, and the front has now reached the highway here between Kamyanka and the northern area, so they are closing in on capturing the intersection to cut off the connection between the north and the south of the Touretsk area with the Avdiivka area. Then we move on to the Marinka front, where the Russian forces continue their attacks in the north, center, and south of the city, as they continue their attacks in the direction of Pobieda. And here to the south of Marinka, the Russian forces actually managed to capture this warehouse area here to the south, west of the city. So now they are in control of about 70% of the city, and they continue their fights here in the center as they attempt to take full control over the city. And with this, their Russian forces are actually able to push westwards and flank the Ukrainian positions here in the central area, as well as with their control over the northern area. The hold of Marinka by the Ukrainian forces is declining. Finally, fighting continues by Novomikhailivka as well as by Uledar as Russian forces continue their attacks in these directions. If you like what I do and want some exclusive content, you can subscribe to me on Patreon. The link will be down in the description below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I hope you all have a great day. That is all for this update.